Greetings, Ventures! This is Lorne, your guild advisor, with your unit analysis on the new Halloween units. School's in session for these characters, and magic seems to be the theme of this event, dubbed Nightmare Academia. The banners will be time limited, so you won't be able to get these characters after the event ends unless they rerun this event next year, or do a special banner. They are divided into the Nightmare Academia Fantasy Gacha with Lufia, Philbus, and Aina, and the Nightmare Academia Dream Gacha with Lily, Belle, and Vels. These are your standard banners with guarantees on the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th rolls. But are any of these characters worth it? Let's start with the Enlightened Belle. Funny how he's getting back-to-back characters. This wizarding boy is a magic attacker with pretty respectable HP, magic, and a surprisingly high amount of agility. His special arts is Meteorite, an AoE ultra dark magic attack with a temporary magic boost and debuffs enemy dark resistance by 50% for one turn. This is a very strong special arts magic attack, and you can't go wrong selecting it in cases where you need a strong dark element attack, or even just a strong magic attack for AoE situations. The dark resistance debuff can be especially useful for dark element teams. Some strong dark units include Almana, despite being a physical attacker, since she has a skill that will increase the amount of AoE damage your opponents will take. I would also keep an eye on Wicked Elf Lufia, a dark element magic user, like the new Belle. We will likely get a rerun of last year's Halloween event, which will include her if we get a repeat of the event. Belle's first combat skill is Split Shadow, an AoE low dark magic attack with an ultra uncounter rate that also buffs his magic and dark attack damage by 60% for 3 turns. Normally, we see characters have single skill double buffs that give double 40% or double 50% buffs. Even last event's Outlaw Rabbit Belle was double 50s. This spell being double 60s makes him incredibly strong after using the skill, and you will undoubtedly be wanting to use this skill first in most cases. The buff only lasts 3 turns, but it can be easily extended without having Belle reapply it himself if you have a character like Haruhime. His second skill is Flight Void, an AoE high dark magic attack that has a 50% chance to give your allies 1 instance of physical attack nullification, excluding special arts. If you're familiar with Catty Chloe, this skill works in a similar way. When Belle uses this attack, each of your party members has a 50% chance to acquire 1 instance of a physical attack nullification, meaning they'll completely block all the damage from the next physical attack that could hit them. Since this is the move you'll be using by default in AoE situations after applying your buff, it's a really nice bonus for encounters where you'll encounter physical attacking enemies. If you use Belle in combination with the Chloe assist, physical teams will have a hard time dealing damage to you between the assist nullifications and his own. Belle's final skill is Dark Stinger, a single target high dark magic attack with an ultra unguard rate and temporary magic boost. This skill is rather straightforward. If you're in a single target situation, you'll want to first use his first skill to gain those double buffs, and then switch to this skill to deal a huge amount of damage in single target boss fights. As for notable passives, he sports 35% light resistance and deals 50% more damage against Ghost. Belle is a good all-around dark magic attacker, having uses in both single target and AoE situations. His first skill makes him hit very hard with his double buffs, amplifying the power of his other skills. His second skill is great in AoE situations, particularly against physical using enemies, and his last skill will hit like a truck in single target encounters. If you're in need of a dark magic attacker, it's hard to go wrong with the multi-purpose Belle. Our second unit is Ashimpute Lily. She is also a magic attacker with a rather decent amount of HP and agility, though her magic stat is slightly lower than Belle's, but still respectably high. Her special arts is Crystal Barrage, an AoE Ultra Earth magic attack that debuffs enemy agility and dexterity by 50% for 1 turn. Her special arts will do a respectable amount of damage, but truthfully, I only see it being useful in cases where you need an Earth magic special arts, specifically, as those debuffs, agility, and dexterity are most useful in wargames. But most wargames are over before a special arts is even used, and even then, this only lasts 1 turn. Her first combat skill is Cloven Chain, an AoE low earth magic attack that also buffs the magic and earth attack damage of your allies by 30% for 3 turns. It's odd how this skill only buffs by 30% when the Regina Reveria from the last summer event does 40%, but I suppose that's the trade-off for being an AoE attack. Naturally, this skill works best when used in conjunction with other earth magic attackers. Ironically, Another version of Lily, Enjoy Onsen, is one such magic attacker. This is definitely a move you'll want to use first in most situations to not only boost Lily's power, but your other magic and/or Earth characters as well. Her second skill is Fragment Release, a mid-Earth magic attack with an ultra penetration rate that also removes 2 turns from your enemy's status buff durations. This move will be particularly useful in encounters where your opponents use buffs with short durations, such as familiar rushes where enemies might buff their strength, magic, or even resistances for only 2 turns. And of course, this could also potentially take off the short buffs of characters 3 turns or less. I say 3 turns since the first turn will be the turn the buff is applied, and then Lily will remove 2 turns from the duration on that same turn, so the buff will only be around for 1 whole turn in total. Her last skill is Division Spike, a single target Earth magic attack with an ultra penetration rate and temporary magic boost. If you're just needing a high damaging single target move, this will be your go-to after applying the buffs from her first skill. The combination of high base power with the temporary magic boost makes it hit a respectable amount, along with the ultra penetration rate, meaning this move will successfully penetrate your opponents more often than not, ignoring half their defense. Her notable passives include a 35% resistance to Thunder, and she deals 50% more damage against Ghost. Lily is a decent all-around Earth magic attacker that works best with similar Earth magic characters. Her second skill has some use in encounters, where it's important to remove short duration buffs, and though she won't hit quite as hard as other characters since her buffs aren't as powerful, her final skill deals a respectable amount of damage for single target situations. Our next unit is Darkness Overload Filvis. What an incredible name. She sports a decent amount of HP and an incredible amount of magic at 1930 at max hero ascension. Her special art is Reality Distortion, an ultra dark magic attack with an ultra critical rate, and also increases in damage by 80% for each magic buff on her, a maximum of 160%. This will hit incredibly hard if you have an adventure magic buff and assist magic buff applied to her, so definitely make sure she has both, as this will be your go-to move in any single target encounter. Some magic assists include Wedding Wish Hestia and a new Fells, which I'll cover soon. Her first combat skill is Insanity Genesis, a single target mid-dark magic attack that also increases her magic and dark attack damage by 60% for 3 turns. Not much to be said here, she's a single target focused unit, so always make sure the buffs from this skill are up at all times. Like Belle, these are double 60% buffs, so they're much more impressive than the previous 50s we've seen from past units. Her second skill is Coarse Gaze, a single target high dark magic attack with a high penetration rate that also increases the amount of single target damage your opponent will receive by 20% for 3 turns. In most cases, this will be the move you use after her first skill, and it benefits not just Filvis' single target attacks, but the single target attacks of all your units, so definitely make sure this is up at all times. Remember, you can use a unit like Haruhime to extend the turn duration to Filvis' buffs and debuffs, so you won't need to recast them unless the enemy has a skill to take them off. Her last skill is Vile Intimation, a single target super dark magic attack with a high critical rate, and also increases in damage by 40% for each magic buff on her, a maximum of a 80% damage buff. Besides your special arts, this will be your most powerful skill to use in single target encounters and should be your priority as long as the buffs and debuff from her other skills are active. Like her special arts, if you make sure you have a magic boosting assist, you'll get the full 80% as long as you had the buff from her first skill active as well. This very high critical rate guarantees that this skill will deal a crazy amount of damage with each use. Her notable passives include 35% light resistance, 10% MP regen, and she deals 50% more damage against Ghost. Filvis will be a powerhouse in single target encounters, dealing an insane amount of damage between her double buffs and her special arts and final skill, which benefit from having both an adventure magic buff, normally from herself, and a magic assist. Even if the enemy you are facing doesn't necessarily have a weakness to dark or magic, your party will still find a benefit from the debuff on her second skill, increasing the amount of single target damage your opponent receives. Darkness Overload indeed. Our final adventurer from the Gacha banners is Model Student Lufia, a magic attacker with a good amount of HP, lower agility than Belle and Lily, but a very high amount of magic at max hero ascension at 1931. Her special arts is Dazzling Cluster, an AoE Ultra Earth magic attack with a temporary magic boost, and also decreases Earth resistance by 50% for 1 turn. I said Lily's special arts was something you wouldn't normally use, and this is why. Lufia has the AoE Earth magic special arts you'll definitely want to be using. The Earth resistance debuff will also benefit Lily, and if you use a debuff extending skill like Haruhime's on the same turn this skill is used, you'll be able to carry that Earth resistance debuff well beyond that one turn. Her first skill is Stone Rage, an AoE low Earth magic attack that increases her magic and Earth attack damage by 60% for 3 turns. Like most of the units that can buff themselves, you'll be wanting to use this move first to strengthen her other skills, and again, we're met with that double 60% buff. Her second skill is Sediment Impact, an AoE fast mid-earth attack with an ultra critical rate that also decreases the turn duration of your party's debuffs by 2 turns. Now this is potentially a game-changing move for both wargames and PvE encounters like Familiar Rush. As I said before, Lufia doesn't have the best agility, but in this case, you want her to go after the commonly used fast moves from Kotsu's strength, magic, and agility debuffs and temporary healer Ami's debuffs. These debuffs only last 2 turns, and since Lufia's fast modified skill makes you go before your other debuff units, she'll remove the substantial debuffs and your party is free to deal damage without the worry of those debuffs being in effect. And beyond wargames, Lufia can take off debuffs that bosses might apply if they last 2 turns or less. Her final skill is Fissure Heart, a single target high earth magic attack with an ultra critical rate and temporary magic boost. Just like Belle, this Lufia is an all-around unit, useful for AoE and single target encounters. Combined with the double buffs from her first skill, this skill will hit very hard with the temporary magic boost and ultra critical rate, making most uses of this skill ending in critical hits. As a result, this Lufia should pull some decent damage in single target situations. Her notable passives include a 35% resistance to thunder, and she deals 50% more damage against Ghost. Now let's start with assist. First up is Ghost Fells. It's about time we got another unit for Fells, and I bet a lot of you can now add Fells to your character list and gain more CP levels. Too bad Fells is an assist because this is a really cool design. Fells is very magic oriented, sporting a very high magic stat of 651 at max limit break. Fells' assist skill is Ghost Guidance, which at level 60 gives a 15% magic buff and a 10% earth and dark attack damage buff to your allies. At max limit break, this changes to a 20% magic buff and a 15% earth and dark attack damage buff. Fells is the perfect assist to use on a character like the new Darkness Overload Vilvis, and she'll benefit from the magic buff, not just from a magic stat standpoint, but Vilvis' special arts and third skill will deal considerably more damage due to having a magic buff available. And she also gains the benefit from the additional dark attack damage as well. Naturally, Fells will work with all the other characters as they are all magic attackers that are either dark or earth element. Even if you don't have many dark or earth magic characters, Fells can be a good character to have in general if you lack a magic assist like Wedding Wish Hestia or Banquet Queen Freya. Our last assist is wannabe nerd Aina, who also sports a high magic stat, hers being 623 at max limit break. Her assist skill is Elitist, which debuffs enemy strength, magic, heal rate, and counter rate by 10% at level 60. At max limit break, this amount changes to 15% across the board. Aina is an interesting assist because she seems to be an assist you would use if you want defensive coverage of both physical and magic attacks, which might be useful in wargames as we'll probably see a lot more diversity of units with the incoming magic characters in a primarily physical focused meta. She'll allow you to cover both bases, plus decrease the effectiveness of your enemy's heal and counter rates, which should hurt those teams that pack a lot of counter healers like Fina, Amid, and Haruhime. And despite Aina being a very all-purpose character, I don't see her as an absolute necessity, as she's limited in the situations in which you would use her. Encounters where you're expecting both physical and magic damage are rare outside of wargames. You would normally use a unit with a higher debuff like Onsen Hestia for strength or Onsen Mikoto for magic. Though if you don't have a strength or magic debuffing assist, Aina is definitely not a bad option. And that ends my analysis on all 6 gacha characters. I think Vilvis and Lufia are the main highlights, but by no means are Belle and Lily undesirable. I myself would be aiming for Vilvis, but unfortunately, her perfect assist in Fells is stuck on the other banner with Belle and Lily. Luckily, we have a heroic trial coming for these characters, the first of which you'll be able to grind to get a bond of your choice for either Belle, Lily, or Fells. And there should be another heroic trial soon after for a Philvis, Lufia, or Aina bond. That trial will likely drop next week. I wish you luck on these Halloween rolls, and remember this is a time limited event, so you'll only be able to roll on these characters during the event and they won't be added to the general pool of characters. We probably won't see them again until next year if they do a 2019 Halloween rerun. I can't wait to get started on the story because I'm very curious on how the characters of DanMachi ended up in a magical academy setting. One thing I would like to see is Belle interacting with Philvis, as those two characters rarely interact at all in the anime or light novels. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this Halloween event and found this analysis useful. For more DanMachi content, go subscribe to my channel, and also don't forget to follow me on Twitter and join my Discord. As always, continue enjoying your time adventuring in Rario and the dungeon. This is Lorne, your guild advisor, signing out.